Hey guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. I hope everybody's having a good week. It has been so rainy. Oh my gosh. I think northern Florida is going to flood. All of it. Like, not just one part of it, like all of it. It's so bad. So bad. I feel for Louisiana. I know they're about to get hit too. Hurricane season's been so weird this year. We just passed like the midpoint of hurricane season. It's supposed to be September 10th, so we just passed it. And yeah, I don't know. I hope we're on literally a downhill slide, and it's not going to get any worse. I really do. I hope this is one of those quiet years. Thanks to everybody who's interacted with the social media pages. I kind of just needed a break from social media, so thank you all for understanding. Sometimes you just got to step away. It can be overwhelming. But thanks for everybody who's posted those memes, liked, commented, interacted with the TikTok page. I do have a subscription on TikTok if you're interested. I post some pretty cool subscriber-only videos, favorite places, hidden gems, lots of cool like thunderstorm videos, some beaches that I don't want to tell anybody about, but I'll tell my subscribers. I'm also still doing the YouTube thing. Learning YouTube, not really, still just posting shorts, but we're getting there. But thank you guys for continuing to make this podcast awesome. So without you, I wouldn't be doing this. So thank you. Today I want to talk about a place in Florida that is so beautiful it kind of feels unreal. It's an amazing, beautiful island that has really taken a hit the past few years. Unfortunately, though, with the hurricanes. But, its beauty shines through. And I'm actually talking about Captiva. I know a lot of us have been to Captiva. A lot of us love Captiva. We were extremely excited when it made it through both Irma and Ian. And to see that the lighthouse on Sanibel was still standing was such a great thing, especially after Ian. That was insane. But I want to talk to you guys today about it. I feel like it's talked about, but not really talked about. So let's talk about this beautiful little island. Captiva is an unincorporated community in Lee County, Florida, and it's part of the Fort Myers, Cape Coral metropolitan area. Of course, Captiva is on Captiva Island, and it sits in the Gulf of Mexico. It's north of Sanibel Island. So Captiva is kind of its own thing. Actually, it's not really part of Sanibel. It is actually its own island. You can access the island from Sanibel Island. There's a small bridge that crosses Blind Pass, and it separates the island. You do have to pay a toll to get there because it separates Sanibel and from the mainland. So you do have to pay a toll to get to the island, to get to either Captiva or Sanibel. But it's absolutely beautiful, and it has been destroyed by hurricanes over the past few years. But it's still going. It just keeps coming back, and I love it. I love this place, so I wanted to talk about it today. Captiva really does have an interesting, if not almost folklore type of history. The island historically got its name from the famed pirate Jose Gaspar, the same one for which Tampa celebrates Gasparilla, because he held his female prisoners on the island for ransom. Get it? Captiva. But the existence of Gaspar is actually up for debate. If you don't believe me, I actually talked about it in one of my very first episodes called Florida Folklore and Myths when I very first started the podcast. Go back and listen to it. It's actually literally one of my very first episodes. Go back to my podcast library and check it out. I say a lot more than I do now. Just going to go ahead and forewarn you. But Captiva, the island itself is actually much older than the debated existence of the famed possible pirate captain who possibly named it. The island was possibly created around 3000 BC as the Gulf of Mexico began to drop even more so than it has today, even possibly 8 feet lower than what it actually is today. The first possible inhabitants of the island were the Calusa Indians. They were a fierce seafaring tribe that used to live in southwest Florida. I actually talked about them not too recently as well. You can find them in my podcast library as well, so check that out too if you want to learn more about the Calusa Indians. But Captiva would have been a perfect home for the Calusa as they relied heavily on fish and their as their main food source. They were seafaring. They would have been traveling to the islands all around right off the mainland in the Gulf. And they often created houses on stilts. So Captiva would definitely have been a place they probably would have at least explored, if not lived. And honestly, Captiva was kind of forgotten about after the Calusa. Once, settlers came in and started to populate Florida, it really was forgotten about. People didn't really take boats off the mainland to go into the Gulf or really any part of Florida past other than the Florida Keys for a very long time. And it really was forgotten about until an Austrian named Bender. I'm sorry, I think of Futurama. Sorry. An Austrian named Bender was on a German freighter headed to New Orleans, and the ship crashed off of Boca Grande, and Bender was shipwrecked on what would eventually be Upper Captiva. So he essentially rediscovered Upper Captiva, and he actually lived there for several weeks as he built himself a raft to get to Pine Island to eventually get home. So Bender was probably much better than the Bender on Futurama. Just saying. But so this guy essentially rediscovered Captiva, Upper Captiva, thanks to a shipwreck, which kind of sounds like how a lot of things got discovered, back then. But Bender eventually served in the U.S. Army in 1888 and was naturalized as a citizen. And so when he did so, he was able to get a homestead, and he asked to go back to the island that he'd been shipwrecked on all those years ago. And when he did, he created a homestead on Captiva when he was in his late 30s. He was actually Captiva's first and really only modern era inhabitant for a very long time. He actually died in Captiva. That doesn't sound right. He died in Captiva. He died on Captiva in 1932. Of course, Captiva has since been modernized and grown since then, but that was really Captiva's only modern homestead up until that point. Like, he was its only inhabitant, which was kind of cool. Like, he remembered the place he got shipwrecked and he wanted to go back. I guess he didn't have such a horrible time being shipwrecked after all. Maybe it really was his own slice of paradise. And that's kind of cool. Captiva actually was originally part of Sanibel Island, but it eventually became its own island thanks to the 1926 hurricane that was such just a bad storm. It had a huge storm surge, and it actually created the channel known as Blind Pass, and that's kind of what helped create Captiva to be its own island. Captiva, like Sanibel, is a barrier island to Pine Island, but it's obviously much, much smaller. The only access is via the bridge from Sanibel, so you literally have to drive to Sanibel to drive to Captiva. The island is half private ownership with Millionaire's Row, which is basically luxury homes on both sides of Captiva Drive. And then the South Seas Island Resort is at the end of that drive. And the resort is pricey. Like, pricey. But it also really has anything you need. But it's not inclusive. So be prepared to pay. It has what you need on the resort, but you're going to pay resort prices. You can find rentals on Captiva, you can find a couple other resorts, and you can find other places on the island to stay because once you go, you're going to want to stay again. It has absolutely gorgeous views and insanely beautiful waters. Like, Captiva is amazing. But of course, Captiva really does rely heavily on the tourist industry, as that really is its number one industry. The island has seen many notable guests, such as Teddy Roosevelt, Charles Lindbergh, and J.N. Ding Darling, just to name a few from years gone by. Of course, I'm sure celebrities go there today. You just don't really hear about it as much. Of course, we also don't really know exactly who lives on Millionaire's Row. The island also has many cottages. They also have the Old House Restaurant, which has actually been designated as a historically significant site by Lee County. So it's protected. The Bubble Room. The Bubble Room is such a cool place on Captiva. The Bubble Room was built on the island in 1979, and it is a multi-themed restaurant filled with old toys from the 1930s and 40s, and of course the collection continues to grow to this day. And the Bubble Room plays music from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. It actually started that trend of pastel colors on the island that you pretty much see used all over the island today. I mean, if you drive on the island, it's kind of what you think of for Florida, the pastel pinks and greens and blues, and every now and then you see a purple and an orange. And we can thank the Bubble Room for that. So blame the Bubble Room for your love of pastels on the beach, especially on Captiva. The other thing that Captiva is known for, aside from amazing beaches and tourism, is shells. Believe it or not, Captiva is a great place to look for shells. The island is said to be made up of shells, so basically it's a good place to find them. You can find so many different kinds too. Like if you're a true shell hunter, like I know Tracy is, who's one of the podcast listeners, who, by the way, told me there were so many different types of shells that I didn't even know about. So thank you for that education. You can find so many different types of shapes and colors and sizes on Captiva. Like it's a shell hunter's paradise. The location of the island, though, is actually one of the great reasons for that. It's a great place because the currents make it a great place because, like, the way the currents flow around the island, it drops them directly onto Captiva. The only way I can probably accurately put this is it's the same way Venice works with shark teeth. The Gulf currents bring the shells to Captiva the same way that the Gulf currents bring the shark teeth to Venice. So if you're looking for shells, definitely check out Captiva. You can also find sand dollars in Captiva, but they do ask that you only take the ones that are no longer alive. If you want to know if a sand dollar is alive or not, you've got to flip it over and look at the back. If you see little feet on the back, they're alive. And if you can't tell, if you run your finger over them, it'll feel fuzzy and they'll move. And that means that they're alive. So you got to put them back in the water. Don't throw them. Do not throw them. Gently place them where you found them. If the feet are still there, but they are not moving, they're kind of hard, they're kind of brittle, you found a true treasure on Captiva. You can take that sand dollar home. Do not take live sand dollars and do not take live starfish. Do not take a live starfish and take it out of the ocean to dry it out to take it home. You are the worst kind of person if you do that. That is a living animal. Don't do that. I cannot tell you the amount of time I've seen people try and do this, and you are a horrible person if you do this. Do not do that. Do not. Okay? Don't. Just don't. I just had to add that. Another cool thing about Captiva is you can take some amazing cruises off Captiva. I mean, if you're looking for a dolphin cruise, they even have shelling cruises that take you to other islands. If you want to do sea life excursion, if you're looking for other kinds of sea life or other dolphins or just going to other islands, this is definitely a place you want to go out of. They also have really amazing sunset cruises because, of course, the Gulf is definitely known for its sunsets. You can find these literally leaving multiple times a day in Captiva. The one that I recommend, though, is Adventures in Paradise. No, this is not sponsored. This is just one that I know that has a lot of different packages and a lot of different options and a lot of different price ranges because, you know, I like the ones that usually find something for everyone because we know that vacations mean memories, but not everybody can drop a lot of money on those memories all the time. Another cool thing about Captiva is you can always find fishing charters. If you want to go deep sea fishing in the Gulf, Captiva definitely has a lot of fishing charters that can go out of it, and that's another cool adventure out of Captiva, which deep sea fishing in the Gulf is amazing anyways. So that's another thing you definitely want to check out if you're a fisherman. Captiva is really cool, though, also because you can just ride bikes around the island. They have golf courses, tennis courts. You can rent a boat and just go into the Gulf. Just be careful. Jet skis, of course, or you can just lay on the beautiful beach on this really pretty island and just take in the Florida sun. Wear your sunscreen. Wear your sunscreen. Skin cancer is a thing. But Captiva really does kind of have it all for your perfect Florida vacation. It's an amazing place. And of course, for this amazing place, they've got some amazing restaurants as well on the island. The Bubble Room that I talked about, that we're blaming the pastel colors for, has an amazing experience, also as well as local bars. The seafood on the island is unbeatable. Gulf shrimp. Gulf shrimp is just the best. It's huge. It's tasty. It's just great. Uh, the Key Lime Bistro is another place that has an amazing patio with fun vibes. If you're looking for a laid back place to get some drinks and food and you want to take in the Florida sun, check out the Key Lime Bistro. Uh, Captiva also has some upscale restaurants if you're looking for something a little more fancy and if you're celebrating a little bit more of a special event. They really do have it all. You'll find something pretty much for everybody. And this beautiful place really has also been through it all. Captiva was hit by Hurricane Charlie's eastern eye wall on August of 2004, which is surprising they only got hit by one in 2004 because that was the year that 4 hurricanes decided to slam into Florida. If you don't know anything about that, I've also done a podcast episode on that. It's called 2004. Look in my library. But Captiva was hit by Hurricane Charlie's eastern eye wall in August of 2004. It destroyed 160 buildings, and another 160 suffered major damage. Captiva had trees down, and I mean, they had a lot of damage. And of course, they bounced back, but then they got hit by Irma. Irma had some caused structural damage, trees down again, and that's amazing because Irma hit Lee County, but didn't really hit Captiva at the same time, but it hit mainland Lee County because Lee County itself did not fare well from the monster storm of Irma. So for Captiva to not have major damage is actually a really great thing. But Captiva did not do so well during Ian. Ian hit in September of 2022, just actually 2 years ago. And it pretty much felt a direct hit. That was a really bad storm. I've talked about this storm. I had the podcast during that storm. You've heard me talk about Ian. Ian was just an absolutely devastating storm, especially through that area. The hurricane hit Captiva and Upper Captiva with sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. The Sanibel Causeway was also heavily damaged by that direct hit. And of course, even 2 years later, you're still going to see the effects of that hit. And of course, the island has slowly come back. You can now find places to eat and drink and places to stay and things to do. Florida's strong. Florida comes back. Florida bounces back, and you're like, well, you're used to it. Yes, Florida is used to getting hit by hurricanes, but it still takes time. You still have to find the supplies, the people, it takes a minute. And of course, the island has built back. And of course, you have to understand, though, that some things may not completely go back to normal, unfortunately. Some restaurants will never reopen. Some residents decide they don't want to come back. The beaches that you went to years ago have probably changed since that hurricane. The sands have shifted. That one place is gone, unfortunately. The buildings don't look the same. But go back, because that's what helps the towns rebuild. And that's what's helped Captiva rebuild. And that's what keeps Captiva going. And it's a great mix of new Florida and old Florida at the same time. And that's also what it's kept withstanding the time and tide to keep you wanting to go back to Captiva. Captiva has those unbeatable sunsets, the beaches for shelling, the amazing places to eat, and the seafood, and the sunset cruises, and the charters, and dolphin watching, and everything else that just gives you that absolutely perfect backdrop for your vacation or your great memories, or unfortunately also encountering Florida Man, because he's there too. He won't stay away either. Although today's Florida Man comes out of Jacksonville. Go Duval. Today's Florida Man told police that whatever he took was not cocaine. He knew it wasn't cocaine after he was accused of stealing a truck and crashing it through a fence at the Jacksonville International Airport. Plot twist, it was meth. Welcome to Florida, guys. Don't do drugs. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about this little island in Florida with some amazing views and amazing things to do. And yes, I will eventually be talking about Sanibel. Thanks for listening, guys. If you have a second, any shares, likes, subscribes, and reviews are appreciated as it keeps the podcast going. Thank you for all the support. I hope that hurricane season continues on a downward swing. Thoughts to Louisiana. Hopefully the storm doesn't gain any more strength as it gets ready to hit Louisiana. Feel free to reach out, guys. You still can reach me through email at thatfloridafeel@gmail.com. I do have a couple of fun episodes in wait. And as always, I do have anybody who has asked me to do an episode. I am working on it. So you will hear those soon. Guys, don't forget to drink your water, wear your sunscreen, be nice to one another. There's plenty of people in the world that we don't want to talk about, but we don't need to be them. And as always, guys, that's your daily dose of sunshine.
This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.